Deep ecology obligates valuing objects in nature, including nature, for its own sake, because of its beauty. And I want to see whether it works and how it could work. I will start with nature to talk about what's valuable in nature and contrast that with an anthropocentrism that focuses on the use value of objects in nature for human. And then I'll talk about human welfare, what it is for us to lead a good life, and relate that to capitalism, which is the most popular way we operate economically. And then I'll talk about instrumentality, how we value things only for its use. And then I'll end with humanity and where we stand given where we are. So nature, ecodiversity, it's just like the wildlife, it's just nature as it has been, especially before human beings. So the animals, they prey on each other, there are prey-predator relation, there are deaths, but that wildlife relation in its natural habitat, after some time, it is an ecosystem that's sustainable, especially before human intervention. And of course, people talk about biodiversity, species, avoidance of extinction, but ecodiversity goes a little bit beyond that because biodiversity, you just need a zoo. But ecodiversity, we need them with the animality in the wild, in its natural habitat. And that's a good thing because it's just beautiful, nature as it is. But typically when we talk about the politics, when we engage in politics with regard to nature, we talk about sustainability. We want an equilibrium that's that we don't disturb it too much of the system. And there are systems that interact with each other and there are system of systems. And we talk about sustainability, how it could continue in the long run instead of talking about the system, the ecosystem as something intrinsically valuable. And anthropocentrism along the line of sustainability talks about use value. For example, why do we care about the forest? Because we need wood from the trees to make paper, for furniture, and we need oxygen that trees, greens, leaves can turn carbon dioxide into with photosynthesis. And why do we care about the ocean? Because if we farm fish too much without the resting period, we will fail to continue to have food from the marine meat. And this doesn't talk about at all the intrinsic value of nature, but only focuses on how they're useful for us. So when we talk about what's useful for us, we want to see whether those value, how it is that constitute our welfare or even our good life. And typically we talk the economic measurement with money, such as in a gross domestic product measure. And sometimes there are the economics of happiness, which measure with subjective well-being, reported life satisfaction. But then there's something like dignity, because, well, dignity is the power to act on self-respect. So it's roughly like doing what you want to do, doing what you rationally want to do. So consider a gourmet who's wealthy and healthy, so he eats whatever he wants, good food. So supposedly that's someone that's very happy. What about a monk? He chose to lead an aesthetic life, but does it imply that he's less happy? But if we talk about dignity, it's in terms of both of them having the power, the possibility of doing a certain thing, but they chose to lead the life they wanted with the alternative that's forgone. So welfare, or maybe even economy, we need a measure that doesn't ignore the differences between, for example, the gourmet and the monk. And then capitalism, it's only about profit maximization. And as we all see in the food production industry, intensive farming, it lowers the cost and increases the amount of output. But in the end, it's just wasteful because there are many meat and other produce that are just wasted because we can't consume that much. And sometimes we have to sell food that are good looking, and in the end, we just waste a lot that's not that even have only cosmetic flaws. And to do that on a capitalistic free market, we have to use monetary incentive. For example, organic farming. It uses no factory manufactured. It doesn't use pesticide, for example, factory manufactured pesticide, and it doesn't introduce foreign substances into the ecosystem. It's good for nature, but we could only motivate farmers to do that with money. Well, they could price their produce at a niche. So organic farming, there are people who are very interested in that. There are a farmers market that encourages people to do that. But that's all that is, and it will lose out because the money, it's very ludicrous to do intensive farming. But if we want to do promote the intrinsic value of nature, for example, like ocean ecodiversity, I think politically what we can do is to talk about the loss, the decrease in biodiversity and how it disrupts the food chain. And then in the end, it will be bad for us, the use value of the ocean, if we do not farm appropriately, will in the end lose out. It's us who get hurt. And land ecodiversity, well, we talk about soil regeneration. We don't exploit the land too much because it will lead to desertification. Not only will we not be able to farm, it will lead to various other environmental problems. So we talk about long-term sustainability. It's about the use value for human beings. We talk about the instrumental value, and that's, but in the end, deep down, we're talking about deep ecology. It's that motivates us. It's that morality that got us to have this ethics to achieve morality politically. And lastly, of course, humanity includes the animality of self-preservation, biological sustenance to continue with our life. But there are some human beings, I think, that will exploit nature. They use nature in a dominating way. They don't only want to get enough for themselves, but the kind of exploitation, the kind of instrumentalization, I hypothesize would be in the end irrational, because if nothing is sacred, if nothing is intrinsically valuable, then whatever use value, instrumental value certain things have, it's just not a value for something that has an end. It doesn't have a purpose. So that's how I would see that. So on the one hand, we have to do it politically correct and to convince others, but we should know that it's nature that guides us in all this. So I've talked about nature and how typically we start from our perspective and what it is that constitutes our perspective, what exactly is our welfare. And in a capitalistic society, we run on well, money, free market, buy and sell. And that even if we are to accommodate to the present situation, the status quo, the instrumentality, we can still do something that's towards the good of nature. And in the end, that's humanity. And whether if we don't care about dignity and if we only care about money or even happiness, it's not enough.